Welcome to this new series of reflections looking for a new way of living. Now, I know some of you who have opened up this YouTube video will already be deciding to leave. You know, you are the surfers, people who skim over the surface of life, not listening for very long or going too deeply into any of the challenges that face all of us as human beings. So perhaps I've already said goodbye to you. But those of you who are still here are not surfers, you are searchers. You're people who have a sense of purpose, have a sense also that there is something more to find in life, and are eager to discover the reason you're here, the reason you're on planet Earth, why it's all happening. So I hope for you this series of reflections will be really helpful, giving you encouragement and presenting some of the challenges in perhaps a new way. And there are others of you there who are well on the journey, the innermost journey of life. And hopefully again, if you stay with us during this series, you will find companionship, encouragement, something perhaps to laugh at, perhaps something you hadn't actually noticed, that will make the journey more focused, more real for you. Finding a new way of living. So here we start with the first of these reflections together. To find a new way of living. It's a very familiar title. In fact, it was the title of a hit song from a musical, very successful musical, a few years ago called West Side Story, set in New York, a story of rivalry between two gangs from North America and from South America, the Americans and the Latinos. That actually was a replay in modern dress of the classic story, the Shakespeare play Romeo and Juliet, which in turn was a replay of the story of the Mahabharata, one of the greatest epics, stories of the whole of our human culture, which again is rivalry between two families. And leading into that, we go back to Genesis in the Bible, where according to the story there, the first two human beings actually to have been born on planet Earth, the two brothers, Cain and Abel, also lived a life of rivalry and jealousy and ended in one of the brothers killing the other. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the great tragedy of humanity in failing to learn how to live together in harmony, in respect, in joy, in creativity. We don't have to go back into our history and into our literature to realize the truth of this. It's all around us, here and now, every day. We hear it in the media. Rivalry between countries, war within a country, war between religions, war within religious traditions, Sunnis and Shiites, Catholics and Protestants. We know it all. War between political parties, the right and the left, and so on. The great tragedy that humanity on this planet has consistently failed to find a way of living together in harmony, with respect, as I said, and with joy. So, what is the difference now? Well, the difference now is that we've reached crisis point. We have been warned about this For at least the last 50 years, we've had warnings from many different people with different experiences. I'm thinking of one of the early Secretary Generals of the United Nations, a politician, Dag Hammarskjöld, and the warnings he gave us. Myriad warnings have come from the scientists. You may remember Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, who, say, 50 years ago would have given us 100 years for humanity to sort out the problems it has, and then very quickly reduced that to 50 years, and then said, who knows if there's any time left. We heard it from the great spiritual leaders and the theologians, leaders like the Dalai Lama, theologians like Karl Rahner, who 50 years ago was telling us, either we become mystics or we will not be. Either we have to develop a new way of seeing, a new way of understanding, a new way of living. So it's crisis point, and this is the difference. And we can see it for ourselves. We don't need history, and we don't even need the media. We just look around and see what's happening where we live, where we work, the society we move with, the increasing destruction, violence, rivalry, ambition. It's there. The destruction too of the environment, of our natural resources. So humanity and our environment are at high risk at the moment. So this is what is new. The task, as Christopher Fry, the playwright, puts in one of his plays, the task is now soul size. What does he mean by that? The task is so great that it isn't going to be solved by summit meetings alone, by treaties, peace treaties or contracts or investigations or arguments among the negotiators round a table. It's going to create much more than our physical strength, our intellectual ability, our emotional passions. It's going to take something more, something that touches the deep essence of each human being. The task, in fact, is so great that most of us get frightened. We have a crippling sense of hopelessness and helplessness. What really can we do? Is it really possible for humanity to live differently, given our history, given our present reaction to each other? Others are so frightened that they just close their eyes and shut their ears and pretend that the reality is not actually there all around them. It's happening somewhere else. If a drone is not actually flying over my house, if my house is not actually being blown up by terrorists, or my wife or my children abused, then it isn't happening, or it's happening over there, so it isn't actually real. But then someday, the choice between a violent response and an outreach of compassion walks in through their own front door. So this is the situation, and this is where we are. Christopher Fry also wrote in the end of that play, The Prisoner, "It took so many billion years to wake, but will you wake, for pity's sake?" He's talking to humanity. 14 plus billion years. Isn't that a little long? No. This is the key to our problem. The sense of separation, of control, instead of being simply part of. reality? Is it all bad news? Are there no signs of hope? Is there no reason to be hopeful that we will find this new way of living, in spite of our many failures over the centuries, in spite of what seems to be the terrible failure of humanity in our world today? Well, yes, of course there are. You see them, I see them. Let me just take one from the situation we're in now, here in Central Europe. As you must know, because it is world news, Europe is facing a crisis of trying to cope with thousands, tens of thousands, tens of thousands, tens of thousands of people who are crossing the borders across Europe, trying to get to a place of safety and of refuge from the war and the destruction and the violence in their own countries. There are others who are coming further away, coming as asylum seekers for the same reason. We have others who are risking crossing the ocean, and many of whom are drowned, lose their lives, trying to reach a shore which will give them hope of a better way of life. So economic migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, pouring across the borders of Europe. So many, so quickly, that everybody is finding it very difficult to cope simply with all that needs to be done. But what you do find, it's a generous response of volunteers all over the countries. Oh yes, of course, the politicians are arguing, and yes, there are barriers being built here and there. But I have seen a lack of barriers in the hearts of many of the people here. I've seen them giving their time, their energy, making their homes and their skills available, bringing food and blankets and clothing, trying to bring encouragement and calmness and hope, bringing medical help to the thousands, the tens of thousands. Yes, there are signs of hope. Humanity can learn to live in peace and harmony together, can learn to share generously, not counting the cost. We see it also. Perhaps we don't look carefully enough to find it. So this is what this series is about. The great task for me to develop my freedom to choose life and to choose it in all its fullness. And then to reach out and to share with those who are still in search, are still struggling. This is our home, and we can make it a place of respect, peace, and joy, even with all our differences, all our diversity. In doing this, we will discover, we will have to risk finding the one source of all existence. So that is what we're going to do in the reflections of this series. The basic question is, do I really want it? Do I really want this? Do I really want to be engaged in this search, in this adventure of living together, of finding the reason for our existence on this planet? Some of us would like it to happen, but we don't want to feel I have even a small part of the responsibility for making it happen. And if we do feel, yes, I do have a responsibility, but I'm not sure what to do, then hopefully the companionship of these series will help you, will help us all. But we need to set aside a little time each month to begin a reflection. The video is only a beginning. It's something to take away, think over, chew over, get out of it what is important to me, and also, as I said, share. Pass it on. Hear others' opinions. Hear their problems, their solutions. And this will have a great value for all of us. What can we do now to begin? Well, until we meet again in the second part of this reflection series, why not just deliberately look for all the positive signs around you, the ones you see in your own life, in the supermarket, at the football match, at home, at work. Positive signs of people being able to reach out, to accept, to respect, and to enjoy life. Look for the positive signs. Look for them in the press as well. And then point them out to somebody else. Pass them on. The positive rather than the negative. A small story I said about the asylum seekers, or the migrants, or the refugees. Coming through one of the main stations in Vienna about 3 weeks ago, we were coming out and a whole group of refugees were coming in. And one woman had a huge plastic bag, the bags that are used for collecting garbage, in which she probably had everything she could bring with her. And it was not really packed, and it wasn't really tied together. And in the rush and tumble of getting into the station, she was dropping things out of the bag and picking them up and stuffing them back in again. And the people going out, including myself, instead of getting angry about this or cursing these people, what are they doing here, stooped down and picked the things up and tried to help her to rearrange them in her plastic bag and tied them. And with a smile, helped her to make her way towards the train. They seem simple things, but they will change the face of the earth. So, this month, don't close your eyes to the crisis. It is real. And it's not just here in Central Europe. I've used that example. It's exactly the same in North and South America, in the Asian countries, in Australia, New Zealand, in Africa. It doesn't matter where we go. The crisis is finding an expression everywhere. And so the question is, am I really prepared to do even the simple things, to look for a new way of living with each other?